Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by the FMG Fitness 45 Plus World Champion, Renay Bull. Welcome.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for inviting me on here. I feel very honoured.
No worries. I'm super excited to hear more of your journey. So for women who are watching your journey now, it could look like you've always been this strong and this competitive, but where did that all begin?
Yeah, well, I certainly haven't been this strong or this. I have been competitive, but I certainly haven't been this strong. So I guess it all started where when I was a lot younger, I was very sporty, and I competed in elite level swimming. So I was a national level competitor. And then stopped that when I was in high school because it was either swimming or my HSC. I didn't want to have to keep going with my HSC and do that over 2 years. So I stopped swimming. And I guess there was a period of time where I sort of lost myself in my 20s and early 30s where you're going out and you're partying and doing stuff and almost lost my sense of identity. And I missed that competitive side of me that I had when I was younger. And I decided to join a 10-week challenge because I was just sick of constantly letting myself down and not achieving just a simple weight loss goal that I had. I'd put on a lot of weight and I thought, that's it, I'm signing up for a 10-week challenge and I'm going to commit to 10 weeks. Got to the end of the 10 weeks and I went, wow, I managed to do that. That was easy, and lost all the weight that I wanted to lose. And that was a big turning point for me because that was a big tick that I stayed true to myself for that one time that all these years prior I hadn't been. And my girlfriend that got me through the 10-week challenge, who owned the gym, she did a fitness competition at that point in time. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, if she can do that, why can't I? And I still then after that kept putting it off for about 2 or 3 years. And I kept letting myself down again and not going through with that almost burning desire that I had inside of me to do something to push myself. And yeah, I just got sick of letting myself down and I thought, that's it. And I didn't start competing till I was 37. So I was actually quite old to start competing. So yeah, my fitness journey didn't start young and it hasn't been long. So I guess I am proof that anybody can start and get to a high level like I have later on in life.
Yes, I love that. And what would you say it was that was stopping you from competing for those few years when you were thinking about it, but you didn't quite do it?
It was listening to other people. It was taking on their negative opinions. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the people that are closest to us that give you a negative viewpoint, that give you negative feedback. And that's where we need to stop and think, well, hang on, that's more a reflection on them because they're worried if I do this thing, maybe I might be really good at it. And maybe that might project their problems onto them even louder. So I think I listen to other people too much, and I still do it to this day sometimes, but I'm better at catching it and having better self-belief. And I guess the fear of that, it's the fear. I had fear and I let that fear get the better of me. So I think if I have anything to say to anybody that's thinking about taking that step and it's scary, of course it's going to be scary. It's got to be scary because if we're not doing scary things, then we're not growing. We're just staying here. So I think just don't be as scared of that fear because we should be welcoming that. And I certainly didn't. I let that get on top of me.
Yes, absolutely. And can you walk us through your competition history? What shows have you done, and how did each one sort of shape you in that overall journey?
Yes. So each one has been just a tiny little chip away. Each little one just gets you further and further up the rung. But I have done, I think, 9 competitions now over the space of almost 10 years. And let me tell you, the first competition I did, I was not confident. I was so scared. And I have competed over many federations as well because I didn't know where I was going to fit as well, which when you start your competition journey, that's exactly where you are. You don't know where you fit. You don't know what federation your body type fits in. You don't know what category you're supposed to be in and what you feel confident with and comfortable with as well, because each federation has a different style, as you know, of posing, a different style of what they expect of you in terms of your body. So you've got a lot to take into consideration. So I guess, yeah, doing all those 9 shows, not all of them were over different federations, but a lot were, because I was just trying to find out where I was going to fit. And each one, even though the first one I thought I was going to win my pro card, and of course I did not, each competition just is another, as I said, as another tick off your list of staying true to yourself. And doing something like that, you have to go within a lot, because it's a very individual journey. Can be very lonely. Only you can get you there. Not your coach can. None of your friends supporting you, even if they're supporting you, they're not going to get you there. It's you. So every show you do and every little tick is just fuel for that confidence and growth within you. And that also spreads onto other parts of your life as well. Because if you stay true to yourself and you tick off those things on your list that are that burning desire, and you achieve that, you become a better partner, you become a better boss. I'm a boss, and I think that just gives you more confidence within yourself as well, and more self-belief, and that just spreads out in other parts.
Yes, I love that so much. So 9 shows, that's a massive achievement. What did your
Yeah.
road to the world title actually look like behind the scenes?
Yes, well, it's been a long time in the making, let me tell you. I hadn't competed for 3 years, so I had a break. The show that I did prior to these ones, 3 years ago, I did the worst I'd ever done. I looked the worst I'd ever been on stage, felt the worst. I wasn't confident. I was very disappointed in myself, and how I stood on stage. So I had a big break. But, life got in the way. I was busy, things like that. I didn't stop working towards it, because I knew that that was my end goal one day. It was my dream to get to Worlds. And when I heard that it was at the Gold Coast, I thought, right, this is it. This is my year. I've got no excuses. I'm going for it this year. And everything has to fall in place when you compete. All the stars have to be in alignment. Otherwise, it's too hard. So timing has to be right, and certainly the timing was right for me to do that this year. And as you know, we had New Zealand just 2 weeks before, and so I did the New Zealand show. I went into the New Zealand show very confident and feeling really good. I didn't win, but that's fine. I wasn't expecting to win. I wasn't expecting to for that one. And I'd had a really, really good prep, because I was mentally ready. Everything, as I said, was ready. So up until New Zealand, everything was pretty good, smooth sailing, one of my best preps yet. But when I stood off stage, and here's where that negative self-thought comes back in, and, what other people say sometimes can affect you. When I stood off stage and got my feedback, I mean, it's constructive feedback. I wanted the feedback. But I knew after I stood off that stage that I was not as muscular as I should have been or wanted to be. And I got really nervous about stepping on the world stage, knowing that, shit, I actually probably haven't built as much muscle as I wanted to. And that I wasn't going to be the biggest on stage. And I had 2 weeks. And I was like, well, I can't fix that part of it. And I would say there were 2 days where I was toying in my own brain about pulling out of Worlds. And I've gotten better about pulling these, recognizing these negative thoughts and stopping myself. And, and I had a chat to my coach, and he said, It's not about being the biggest. Get that out of your head. It's never been about being the biggest on stage. It's about being the best and the most conditioned and bringing the stage presence and all these other things, bringing a polished all-round package. And so I thought, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to be the biggest. I'm actually possibly going to be the smallest, but let's be the absolute best and the most conditioned that I can be. And I went away for those 2 weeks. I got all those negative thoughts out, and my God, I had not worked harder in my life, Sarah. In those 2 weeks, it was intense. But coming from a really low point 2 weeks prior to stepping on that stage and winning, it was just unbelievable for me because I'd completely turned my mindset around thinking that I wasn't good enough. So, I never thought that I was going to win, or, I just knew that I had to be proud of myself for being the absolute best I could be on the day. Yeah, and I obviously was. So yeah, it was a bit of an up and down road to world.
Yeah. And what does being world champion mean to you now?
So I guess it hasn't changed me. It's just one of those ticks that I've ticked off for staying true to myself and self-belief. I'm certainly very honoured to represent the Federation and be a plus 45 first world fitness champion. I take that with, great honour that I've got that title. But yeah, it just means to me that little girl where where I started my fitness journey, having lost my identity, not knowing, if I could even complete that first 10-week challenge just to lose that 5 kilos that I wanted to lose, back when I was 37. I just look at myself now and I just think, see what you can do. Imagine what else you can do. So yeah, I guess it's an inner thing. It's not about being the world champion. It's about ticking off another goal and being true to yourself. That just gives you more confidence and more fuel for your fire.
And you talk a lot as well about future proofing. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I said, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was out partying, not caring about what I ate, not caring about how much weight I put on. And as a lot of us do in our 20s and 30s, we do that. But I think now when you start to get a little bit further on in life in your 30s, and the line of work that I'm in, I'm an allied health professional as well as being an online fitness coach. But I see a lot of patients who don't look after themselves. And I think it's in my face a lot that if you don't take control of you and your life, there's no one out there that's going to save you. You need to take responsibility at some point and wake up and realize that if you keep going down that path of not looking after yourself, not caring about what you eat, not caring about just getting steps in and getting some movement in, there comes a point where it gets beyond the reverse. And we keep going down this slippery slope. And I feel like that sort of happens in your 30s. If you don't sort of catch yourself, 30s and 40s, we get too far down this road where it makes it even harder to come back again. And I feel like I'm proof. You can absolutely reverse things, and it's never too late to do that. Maybe, if you're in your 80s, that might be a little bit far down the track, but I'm speaking to most of my audience are in their 30s, 50s as well. It's not too late. It's not too late. So future-proofing your body, taking care of yourself, making sure you get enough hydration, making sure that you look after yourself for your mind, body, and soul as well. Get some movement in. It's proof that there's nothing better for your health than exercise. So, we need to be responsible at some point and take that on board and, start exercising, eating well. And you know what? It might be boring sometimes to do that, but my God, do you feel great? Waking up early, getting your steps in, eating the right foods, You just feel amazing.
So true. And for women in their 40s and beyond,
Mm.
what would you say that they're getting wrong about aging and strength?
That it's too late and that you need to lose weight. It's not always about losing weight. I used to be a cardio bunny, I used to think, oh, I've just got to do cardio and lose weight. But it's not about that. Strength training, women, I cannot express how important strength training is. As I said, I'm an allied health professional. Osteoporosis should be something that is high up on our list. As soon as we get to our 50s, we need to be concerned about that as women. So, the best way to counteract that, as I say, we're on this slippery slope. So we've got to counteract it. And that's with strength training. So don't be afraid of possibly putting on weight, but make it good weight. I weigh 10 kilos heavier now than what I ever did when I was in my 20s. But my God, my body is so much better. My shape is so much better because it's the muscle mass, as well, that we need to try and build. And that doesn't happen without fuel. So I think weight training, and don't be afraid to eat.
And what are your non-negotiables, like the habits that you're doing consistently that really help you stay strong and build that muscle?
Yes. Well, sometimes they're a little bit difficult, the habits. I must admit, it does take time to get into these habits that are non-negotiable, but certainly sleep is a big one, huge one. You need to work out how much sleep you need to feel happy and energized the next day, and monitor that. It's certainly sleep, priority. And then it is movement, whatever movement that may be. So if you are not going to the gym, just walking is enough. Like, let's start walking, do something like that. And the other one is hydration as well. So keeping hydrated. So I think they're the three big ones: sleep, hydration, and some form of movement.
Yes, massive. Do you have any tips for improving sleep for someone who's not sleeping enough?
Yeah, so it can be tricky. And obviously, life gets in the way, and there's always things that are going to distract us from trying to stick to a routine. There's always that little bit extra that we've got to do. But I think just setting an alarm to notify you when you need to start to get ready for bed was a big thing for me. And I've worked out I'm very, very happy when I get 9 hours sleep. If I get any less than 8, then that's sort of borderline for me. So I actually set an alarm to remind myself, right, now's the time to start to wind down. Now's the time to shut your computer and stop working, regardless of what other stuff there is that you have to do. There's always going to be stuff you've got to do. So I think, yes, setting an alarm to remind yourself to stop what you're doing to focus on getting ready for bed was a big one for me.
Yes, that's such a good one. I have like little cues as well that help me. Like I'll start dimming the lights when it's time to wind down, and then I have like sleep music that I'll play every night, the same sleep music, and it just seems to really help wind down and like tell myself that it's time to go to sleep.
Yeah, and that's probably a subconscious thing too, by playing that music, I guess, that
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay, that's my cue now. I've got to, oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one. I might try that.
Yeah, and then when you're traveling as well, you can play the same thing and it's like, okay, time to sleep. It just works so, so well for me.
Yeah, right. I need that when I'm on the plane. So I struggle to sleep on a plane.
Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
when you're coaching women, what
Hmm.
is one belief that you often see holding them back?
That they're not worthy, I would say, in a way, that they have this limiting self belief because we are so good as women for doing stuff for other people, for everybody else, and forgetting about us and letting that slip in. So I think a lot of women think they have this big responsibility to keep concentrating on everybody else, especially if they're mums, And I think that limiting belief that they're not worthy, that it's not their time to look after themselves, that they've still got to keep, but you can do it all. Like, why can't you do it all? And it's that saying of that you can't pour from a glass half full, and you can't function, and give all of your time and energy to other people if you've hardly got anything left in yourself. So actually thinking the opposite, and that you are worthy of getting your fitness in. You are worthy of concentrating on your own health. You are worthy of making what you eat a priority, because if you don't do those things, you'll start to, burn that candle away. And sometimes resentment comes in as well, because everybody else is taking our time and we haven't concentrated on ourselves. So I think it's really important that I relay that to a lot of my women who sort of just start off strong and then start to, well, life's getting in the way. Well, no, hang on. It's important that you still focus on you so that you can give 110% to everybody else or whatever else it might be in your life, business or family. Yeah.
And what do you want the next generation of 40 plus competitors to know?
Just to give it a go. It's going to be scary, but have self-belief and do it anyway. And don't let those negative thoughts creep in. And you're not too old. I really hope that I've got, years left in me. And, and I said to my coach when I won just recently, I was like, because I had a few people say, so are you going to quit now? You've won the pinnacle. Are you going to give it away? And I thought, that's a weird thing to think. Why would I do that? And they're like, well, you're 45. Why would you keep going? And I was like, yes, I'm old, I guess. Am I? But then my coach said, yeah, but you've just stood off stage in the absolute best you've ever done and presented the best body the physique that you've ever been able to achieve at 45. So who's to say you're not going to do better at 46 and 47? So I guess, my advice is don't listen to anybody else. Block out those negative thoughts. You're not too old. Go for it. And it's amazing. It's amazing that this sport is something that you can progress in later on in life. There's not a lot of sports out there, our knees give way, our elbows give way, and, you can sort of work around injuries and things like that in the gym as well. So it's a great sport to be able to do later on in life.
Yes, absolutely. And that leads us on to my next question. What is next for you? Have you decided on next shows or goals? What's on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, like I said, when my coach said, so what's 46 going to look like if you've just presented the best physique at 45? And yeah, I stood off that stage, and the first thing that went through my brain is, because I was going to have a break, and just go away and build and do it slowly. And yeah, as soon as I stood off stage, I was like, right, I've got to defend this title. That's where it went. I'm not quitting. I've got the pressure of defending this title now. So I am focused on a really strong build season up until, Worlds next year. So I've just got my blinkers on doing that now, and everything is timed around next November, I think it is.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And what's one last piece of advice that you'd give to an aspiring competitor?
Feel the fear and do it anyway. Don't put it off, because that is the one thing that I regret that I did, was that I put it off competing. I put it off ticking that big thing off my list. So just do it. It's going to be scary. Of course it's going to be scary. As I said, we should be embracing that fear, because that is what brings us to be our best. So just accept that and do it.
Absolutely. I don't think I've spoken to a single competitor that wasn't scared about jumping into a prep and doing a show. Like, you have to remember that everyone starts somewhere, and pretty much everyone
Absolutely.
is scared when they first start as well. So that feeling is completely normal, and like you said, it's not going to go away.
It never goes away. No, I still have that now. You just learn to deal with it a little bit better, I guess. But you're always going to have that fear. But now I think, well, hang on, I've got that fear. That's great. That's good. That means I'm really pushing myself.
Yeah, absolutely. You start to almost get a little bit suspicious when you don't have that feeling of fear or like being a little bit outside of your comfort zone. You're like, okay, we're getting a bit too comfortable here. And then you try and find something to
Absolutely.
do.
But you don't want it to be easy because, the harder the struggle, the sweeter the win, as they say.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So, for women who want to follow the rest of your journey or reach out for coaching, where can they find you?
Yes, on Instagram, and it's just simply my name, Renay, Renay, Bull, Bull. Yeah, on Instagram. And even if you've just got questions, I'm I'm just a normal person. So a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive about messaging me, but if you've got a question about anything, just message me. I'm a wealth of knowledge in lots of areas, not just competing. As I said, I'm an allied health professional as well. So I've got a lot to share. Don't be scared.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your inspiring journey. I can't wait to see what's next for you through your build phase and your road to Worlds next year.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really do feel, yeah, honoured to come on here today.
Thank you so much.